Hey everyone, my name is Ben and you're listening to A Daily Dose of English. This is a short, simple podcast that you can listen to every day to improve your English. You can find the transcripts for all episodes and more on benslanguagelab.com. I'm glad you can make it today. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the end, because this episode is exactly halfway through the first year of making these Daily Dose of English episodes, these daily videos. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about my goals again and sort of the end of this podcast, which is eventually going to happen, right? It can't go on forever. And so I want to discuss that a little bit, some of my thoughts, and yeah. So I'm planning to end this podcast after 1 year of daily episodes. I think that is more than enough. That would be a total of 365 episodes, 365 times, they're about 11 minutes on average, which is 4,000 minutes, 4,015. Let's round to 4,000 minutes divided by 60, which is about 66 hours and 66, or 0.66, which would be 60 hours and 40 minutes of content. 66 hours and 40 minutes of content. So that's a lot of content for 1 year for one person to make. And that's sort of why I am going to finish, because this podcast isn't a ton of work. Like, I've made it to be pretty simple, and I really like that about that. I think I've been very successful with it, and that's how I'm going to make it to 1 year. But I also don't really want to continue past a whole year, right? That's a long time to keep doing something, especially when my goals with this podcast are more to prove a point and to make a process that can be repeated by other people, rather than making something that I'm going to continue to do. Because I didn't start making content in English because I necessarily want to, but because I'm really interested in the process of creation of comprehensible input content for language learners, and English happens to be my native language. If I was a native speaker of some other language, I would make episodes in that and videos in that, but English just happens to be my native language, and so that's why I'm making these videos. It's more of the process is the focus rather than the product, if that makes any sense, the end result. I don't know if there's a great comparison, but yeah, I don't know if there's a really a good comparison about like why. But yeah, so my goals are a little different than like the normal person who goes out to make comprehensible input for learners of their native language, because yes, I think you're all amazing and awesome, but I am more interested in other parts of the process and creation process. So that's sort of why it's not really supposed to be a never-ending thing. That's also why I don't really care about promoting it that much or improving certain parts of the product. Right? I could make a better product. I could do better. I could put more time in. I could fix my search engine optimization stuff. There's a lot of things that I could improve, but that part of it is not as interesting to me, and I don't particularly care about how successful this is, because I am enjoying making it rather. Yeah, that's the key. I'm enjoying making it. I'm not necessarily enjoying making it, if that makes sense. That's actually an interesting thing. I don't know if you can do it in other languages, but it definitely happens in English, where the stress of a word and how much you emphasize it can totally change the focus of the sentence. In other languages, you can, or at least in Spanish, you can add some words to change the focus, right? You can either change the order, or you can add a clarifying word or something like that to make the focus on a different thing. But it's not exactly the same, like highlighting a specific word to change like the focus. So in the case of making the content versus making the content, right, the focus is on the verb, the action of making it, or the final product of the content, right? Anyways, I'm rambling. So I think I'm going to end the podcast after a year. However, I might continue to make other little videos, because those are a lot more enjoyable and doable. Like, I like making this daily podcast, but I don't love the fact that it's like I have to do it daily and I have to worry about getting up an episode. And I know I don't have to really worry because nobody's actually asking me to do this and what yada, yada, yada. But I made the goal for myself to make a daily episode, and it's called Daily Dose of English. And so I want there to be a daily episode for a whole year. And so I want that to happen, in which case it's important to me. And so that's another like just thing that adds up to my, I wouldn't say stress. I'm not like stressed about it, but it's more work, right? Other videos and series might also happen less just because I also want to focus on other things, right? One of my goals for the end of this year, so this like calendar year, which means it's basically already happening, is that I would like to start to do this for some other languages where I'm just kind of monitoring the process and helping, but that I can start to learn and use that content, because that's like the actual end goal, is to make content in lots of languages and help whoever wants to do this sort of thing. And so I want to be able to dedicate more time to that. I want to be able to dedicate more time to other hobbies and interests, because this recording time kind of takes up a pretty important part of my day, right? Pretty much right after work, I will relax a little bit and then record. And that's when I have a little bit of energy again after work and in the evening. And so I can't put that energy into other things necessarily. Well, I can't because I'm doing this. And so that's also something that I'd like to get back, is to be able to do more, potentially more language learning as well. I'd love to have more time for other languages and to try things out and to improve the process and that sort of thing. But I don't necessarily have more time, and I could take away other time, but like part of the problem with that is that I'm really tired at other parts of the day, like before I go to bed and stuff. So it doesn't really work if I want to just convert more time. So yeah, that's what I'm planning on doing, is ending this podcast after another 6 months of episodes. So finishing out the full year, doing it all strong, and then potentially doing some more casual Ben's Language Lab stuff. Maybe if I ever play video games again, I'll do some more of those English with video games episodes. I might even continue with the super beginner ones, that sort of thing, because those are fun and a lot easier. So yeah, that's sort of, I guess, the overview of why this podcast exists and why I'm going to stop eventually doing the podcast. But I think that a year of these episodes is also totally fine for any English learner in the future as well. It's not like you really want to use a 10-minute simple podcast every single day for a full year. I feel like this is going to be more than enough for a lot of people, because at a certain point, you can use other materials, or you can do one of these every other day, or there's a lot more resources to use for English, because it gets a lot more interesting, right? I am just one dude, and you can find podcasts of basically the same style, but that are longer, that are more interesting, they have better storytelling or editing or whatever it is. And so I also don't want to... I want people to go out and explore the awesome world of content in English. There's a reason that I would consider it one of the easier languages to learn, and not because of the quality of the learning materials. Actually, I think a lot of the English learning materials are a little backwards and not very helpful, but the sheer amount of amazingly good content available in English is just incredible. It's not only very widely available and on an really high average quality, but it's also so easy to access basically everywhere in the world because of the size of the English internet. Right? This website, YouTube, is an American company, and a massive portion of the videos are in English, and those are available in pretty much every country except for China, I think. There's probably a couple others that ban YouTube, but you can even access it relatively easily with a VPN. If you're listening to this episode with a VPN, make sure to leave a comment down below. I'm kind of curious. But anyways, I think I'm starting to ramble about different unrelated things at this point. So yeah, basically, in summary, I didn't start this podcast to make the most content ever. I wanted to learn about the process, and I feel like I'm doing that quite well. So things are going to come to an end, and I'm going to focus on more other personal projects and pursuances. Is that a word? Pursuits. That's the word. Pursuits in the future. So, yeah, but that's not coming really anytime soon. That's coming in half a year. So I will see you again tomorrow for another episode, and the day after that, and the day after that. But have a great rest of your day today, and I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye.